Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how I can use the lab tree tools to build procedural trees. So here in Houdini, let's start. So I have a base platform and I also have a couple lights. Now to create a tree, I'm going to add a new geometry node here. We can call this the tree tools. And let's go in here and we're going to place our first node. And of course, we're going to start out with the trunk of the tree. So when we type in tree, we will see here multiple tools and we're going to use the trunk generator. And this is then here our result. So this trunk. Now let's take a look at some of the settings here. So at the top, a lot of these tree nodes will have a tag name. So this tag name, so this expression is basically referencing to its node name. If I go to the spreadsheet here, we will see here in the primitives that we have a tag attribute with the exact name of the node. So this can be useful if you want to ask specific parts of a certain node. Now further, let's go for some of the settings. So here we have general, so we can have the length. So right now we can play around with the length. We can also randomize the length, so it's now between 5 and 10, as you can see. So if you want to generate a lot of different trees, we can also just have always a random length. So maybe we can say from, let's say, 7 to 10. It's always a bit random. Then we also have the radius, so we can make it smaller, make it bigger. And we also have then the ramp controlling the look of this. Now further also we have here tropism. So this allows us, for example, to bend the tree. So we can bend it. We can then have the vector in what direction. We can also here have an offset, so it's not bending along the whole tree. We can also have a capture region, so I can really fine tune here the bending direction. So we can play around with that. So maybe we can, for example, subtly blend this a bit, like so, just a bit. Then let's go further here. We have also thicmotropism. So let's enable this. And this basically means that it will collide or wrap around the branch around an object. So we're going to place down a sphere as example here. And let's watch the sphere here. And I'm going to place it here somewhere here in the middle of my scene. So it's like colliding with my branch. So we're going to just drag and drop the sphere into the object. And you can see that my branch is sort of like going around it. So if I move my sphere here, you can see that we can manipulate this a bit by a shape. So it will wrap around the shape here. So if you need to have like a tree colliding with something, you can here do that as well. We also have here then the strength of this. So we can play around with that. We also have then a ramp here for the fall off. Now let's continue here with the trunk shape. So we can have roots at the bottom. So by default you will see this. This is quite intense, so I'm going to lower this like so. So it's a bit more subtle. We also can here set a separate resolution. So if I look at the wireframe, we can then here define a more custom resolution in case you need more or less resolution here. And we can also here have a ramp controlling the shape. So if I would grab here parts of this ramp, I can easily define or redefine the shape here. Then here is another ramp, and this is then controlling how far the detail should go. So if I would move this up, you can see that the detail of these lines will continue along the trunk. So we can really keep it at the bottom if you want to. We can just also nicely blend it like here. We have further here options more to like roll this, to twist this even, and so on. So this can be nice to play around with, get some nice twisting. Then here we have noises, so we can enable a noise. So we will have some more randomness in there. And I'm going to lower here the intensity and also the frequency a bit. And we also have a primary noise and a secondary noise. So I'm also going to lower here some of that intensity, like maybe so. It's a bit noisy. And again, we have a lot of different parameters here further to define more these noises. We also have a mesh noise. This will add some noise in the geometry. And if I would increase here the intensity, you can see that we can really break up the shapes. And if I would, for example, just put this on 0, you can see that it's an almost clean shape. So we can blend some noise in there if you want to. I think that's quite interesting. We can further also play around with different types of noise, but the alligator noise works pretty good here. Then let's go to meshing, and this is for the top. So let's go to the top. So here at the top we have a grid, so it's closed here at the top. We can also just, for example, set this to none, and it's then just a open part here. So if you want a specific geometry here, we can set it here as well. Then we can also play around with the resolution. So if I enable the wireframe, we can in here lower the resolution, increase the resolution. We can also refine the resolution. So parts where we can optimize the geometry, we will. So here at the bottom, you can see that there is some optimization there because these parts are quite straight. So we don't need all that geometry there. And then parts where a lot of bending is happening, like here with the noise applied, we have a lot of like bendings happening. It will keep the resolution. We also here further have some more divisions we can play around with. So we have a lot of options here to set the resolution, but I'm going to leave it as default here. We can also further here use a displacement. So we can displace a texture. So we can fill in a height map or displacement texture, and we can have a nice realistic result there. We also have further options here for then visualizations. Now a good thing here to do as well is to bring in a controller. So here we have the tree controller, and we can just plug it in here. So to continue, I'm going to place multiple nodes down here. So I'm going to add branches, leaves, and so on. But the controller will allow us to change the tree quickly, because this is sort of where a lot of settings can be shared. So here, as you can see in the controller, we have some very similar options that I just talked about. So we have some tropism option, we have some of these noises, tune, meshing, resolution, materials, and so on. And I've also not talked about the other input, which is a curve. So we can, for example, use the draw curve node. So we can draw a line here, and we can give that as input. And in here, I have a option to draw a line. So if I use this handle, I can, for example, draw a tree like this. So we can make also like customized shapes with this. So if you need a really specific branch that goes around something, or for your composition, we can just draw with a curve. So we can quickly draw the line there. You can always go back here, reset this, and draw it like so. That's a really cool way to make custom trees. So to continue, let's place a tree, and then we're gonna go with branch generator. So we're gonna plug in here our input. So we have a mesh and a curve input. So it will by default generate some branches like you can see here. Now for the moment, also a good idea to do is if I go to the controller, we can go here to meshing. And in there we have an option for the intersection behavior. So whenever the branch is in intersection with the tree, it's now, right now we can see that it is Boolean them together. But of course this will take a bit longer to calculate because it has to Boolean each different branch. So at the moment I'm going to set this to none. So you will see that the Boolean will not be applied, and this will work a bit faster. Now further, let's go over the options. So again, we have here the general tab. So in the general tab, I'm going to use here the place mode. So we will place these branches around. Then we have here a scatter method, or we can also do by edge length. So if we lower edge length, for example, we will lower the distance between each branch. So this is sort of the length between the branch. We can also just use scatter, and with scatter we can also like really specifically say how many branches I want. So if I want 2, I just press 2 and I have 2 branches there. So if I need, for example, 16, I can here have 16 of these branches here. Then we have options here for up vector. We also have the branching pattern. So if I look from the top, and if I would set this to 90 degrees, we can clearly see that there is some 90-degree angle going on there. We can also do 180, and you will see that there is a 180 rotation there. So this one gives us a nice result in multiple angles here. We can also here have some variation in there if you want to. So maybe we can just keep this a little bit. And furthermore, we have here the angle, so we can increase this or decrease this. You can see that the branches will twist more. We can have some variation in the angle, but they're not all the same. We can also roll them. We can also do some randomizer there. And we also have a ramp controlling the angle. So if I would increase this, you will see that the ones at the bottom will have a bigger change. This goes from the bottom to the top. Now next up is here the length, so the length of the branches. So we can here take something like this. We can also then add a random value on top of that. So maybe here 0.8, 1.8. And we also here have a ramp on the length here. So if I want less branches at the bottom here, I can basically here just bring this up, and then here will be the most of the branches. I can also just make this like a ramp, like so. So we can, for example, here have like really small chunks here at the bottom, and we can like play around with that. So I'm gonna here just set it like this. And let's go to the next step. So the radius. So this is just the radius of the branch. So we can lower this. We can also here have an offset here. So maybe we do a little offset there. They're a bit smaller maybe. And then let's go to prune. So by default, it will use the settings from the controller. But if I want to override the controller settings, we need to override this here. So maybe let's go to the controller here. We're going to go here to the prune. And then here we can basically remove certain branches based on an angle. So if you see that, you can hear these branches that had like this extreme angle, we can just delete them here. Then we can have the same for the downwards facing angles. So they will be deleted at the bottom first. And then we can also here delete based on a direction. So we can here delete them based on a certain direction. Then we also have here some advanced options, so we can have a detangle. So when branches are close to each other, it will detangle. Then let's go to tropism. So again, we can override it here, or we can go to the controller. So maybe we can just override this. So if you want to have some bending there, we can have something like this. Maybe do it a bit more subtle. You can also like do gravity there. You can increase the gravity. You can create something like this. So we have something like this maybe. Then we can have here some other settings like phototropism. This can be interesting as well. So this will basically bend the branches to a direction. So in this case, it's set to 1 in the x-axis. So if I would, at the moment, strength is 0. So if I would set this to 1, you can see that the branches will go to that direction. Then again, we have here the tick mode tropism. So we can collide with an object. Then let's go to noise. So we can again change the noises here. We have to again override it here. We can always maybe just overall, maybe I want to have the noise more subtle. Then we can here have again meshing, so we can override this. What is mainly important here is that intersection behavior, which I changed at first. So again, they are not really doing anything when they intersect. So we can boolean them. So they will nicely blend. So this gives a really nice result. And here we have normal blending, and here we also have a value to blend the fall off. So we can, if we increase this, we might get some better results. Like you can see, we have a nice smooth result there. We also have here a option to enable UV blending, and you will see that we will have these red colors. And this is basically for in the game engine. So in the game engine, we will use this vertex color to apply a blending with two UV sets. So if I would go to my UV view, I basically have now UV1 and a UV2. So with the vertex color, we can then blend between the two UV sets, so we have a nice smooth transition between the branches. Then further going back to the branch node, we have then again resolution, displacement, and visualization. Now to continue, we're going to basically repeat this process of placing the branch node. So what we can do is we can just copy paste it, connect the lines back again, and as you can see, we automatically already have this result. We have a lot of these branches now created. So I might go in and maybe I don't need 16 of them. Maybe I need like 8 of them. Like that's a bit better. Let's also look down here at some of the other settings. Maybe we can play around with the angle of this. We can also lower the length. Maybe we can have a nice higher variation in there. We can maybe bring this back down. Let's also go to radius. Maybe they should be a bit smaller. And let's go to tropism. And I'm going to disable here the overrides to see if that's better. I don't think that's better. So maybe disable bend first. We have them bending down, so this can also be really interesting. But in this case, I don't want them to be bending down. I want them to be bending up, like so. And I'm going to repeat this process one more time. I'm going to plug in here these. And then we will have even more of these branches. So I'm going to disable this for now. I'm going to go back here to general, placement. Maybe we can use the edge length here. That's okay, a value I think. And maybe I want them just to be way smaller. So let's go here and make them very small, like so. Maybe here back to tropism and have something to maybe some gravity or bend them up a bit. And now I want to generate a leaf on this. So we want to place some leaves in here. So let's create a leaf. So we have a leaf generator and simple leaf. So we can here start with a simple leaf. And this will basically generate a base shape for a leaf. So we can here play around with the size, have some different width and length. We can increase the segments. We can also here in the width, we can further also have the shape defined by a ramp. We can also have different methods. So we can here easily tweak the shape like so. We can also here have some jittering and of course the coloring of the leaf. Now to place these leaves on the tree, we will use that other node, the leaf generator. So it will has 3 inputs. So it has the geometry, the curve, and the optional option is here the leaf. So this is what I'm getting now. And in here, I'm going to enable backend instancing. And also we now have options here, for example, how many we want. So this is the distance between each leaf. So if I would lower this, we will create more of them. We can again here further play around here with the branch option. So we can set this to this value. We can also here play around with the scale, so we can make them a bit bigger. We can also here add scale variation, so they're not all the same. And we can also here have a ramp controlling the scale, so we can make it a bit interesting by doing this. So as you can see, they are a bit more random in scale. That's a bit nicer. Now let's go here. We have prune, so we can randomly delete some of them. We also have prune by light, and we have also further some advanced options. So if you want to offset them, we can here offset them. We can also here do orientation, so we can orient them here as well. And we can also do a jaw. We also have a pitch here. We can maybe do a bit of that. We can do a twist. And we can also use a ramp for each of them. And furthermore, we have like the tropism, noise, resolution, visualization, and so on. Now, to make my tree even look better, what we can do is we can make a little branch like I did over here. So I started out with that trunk. I added some branches here. So you can see that the placement is on edge length with a low value. And we can just scatter then the leaves around it. So I have like a small little branch, and this branch is then going to be used as a leaf. So we can go back here. We can just delete all these inputs here. And we can even just start like picking from here. We don't need, for example, that level because we already have some branches in here. So we can just start from here. And we can then here include the geometry from that output. And this is then the result that I'm getting. So this is already like looking more like a tree, but I think we have way too much branches. So at the moment, the leaf no distance, it's set to a low value because I used one single leaf before. So let's just increase this until like so I have some more better value to work with. So I can further around, still play around with different orientations, ramps, and so on to improve this. But this is just the base setup of how we can generate these procedural trees. Now, one more cool thing to do as well is we can always, like, for example, grab a curve from a previous node. So I can use this curve in the leaf generator here as well. And then we are going to place branches on the previous level. So on this level, I will place the branches. So we can play around with that as well. Since we have two outputs, so we can play around with these curves as well. So in this case, this result is way better, of course. So again, this is a procedural setup, so we can always go back and forward between different nodes. And let's go back here to our controller. And we can just play around here with the randomizer at the top. So you can see that we can quickly get a lot of different variations. And this is just me quickly going through them. So furthermore, if you want to optimize this more for game engines, we can in here have LOD settings, so we can lower the geometry used. We can always have here the resolution option, so we can just lower resolutions quickly. And also here we can replace this by, for example, like playing cards with a texture of that branch there. So we can bake out that branch with the maps baker as well if you want that. And then we can plug that in here to have a similar result. And that was it for this video. So we created these nice procedural trees. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.